Hello, I'm Efraín Camacho. Here we are with a great director, Eli Roth. Nice to meet you. How are you?
Nice to meet you. Very good, very good.
I'm really curious, where did the idea for this story come from?
Growing up near Boston in Massachusetts, which is where the first Pilgrims landed and Thanksgiving began, it was something that was taught in school. Like, it's a big holiday in America, and every other holiday had a slasher movie. So when I was a kid, it was a big thing. My Bloody Valentine, April Fool's Day, Halloween, Black Christmas. But there was nothing in November, and we were waiting for Thanksgiving. And so my best friend, Jeff, and I, as a kid, started dreaming of ideas for this movie. And then in recent years, the Black Friday sale got added to the holiday. It was the beginning of Christmas shopping, and it just started moving earlier and earlier, and these Black Friday sales became like these riots where people would try and kill each other. So the holiday, they say, oh, we're so thankful, and then they go out to the store and try and kill each other for television. So we thought this is a great way to start a slasher film. But I always missed the horror. I wanted to fill the horror movie gap. The horror movies would end in Halloween, and then I'd have to wait until January for another one. And as a kid, that drove me crazy. I wished there was a horror movie in November. So it was also the dream of fulfilling that empty space in the calendar with no horror movie.
I used to love this town. Until what happened that night.
One of my favorite lines in the movie is when some kid says that he doesn't know who Black Sabbath is.
Who's Black Sabbath?
Exactly. So I want to know, how do you work with these new generations and current technologies such as telephones, cell phones, social media to write this type of stories? Does it make writing difficult or easier for you?
I think anytime I'm writing for teenagers, and I like to be, older, Generation X, and writing for kids now that are 17, 18 and having it feel contemporary. I have secret sources. All my friends' kids, they want to help me out. So if I'm writing a scene and I have my friend's 17-year-old, I'll read the scene with her or him and say, okay, you like this guy, what would you say? Oh, no. Okay, you want to make him look good in front of the girl, what would you say? It's, oh, I'll gas him up. Gas him up. All right, I'm writing that. So, and then I'd say, okay, if you're posting and tagging, and I use Instagram, I'm pretty connected, but I'm not on TikTok. You never know what the next generation's doing, but I'm a very curious person, and I'm very open, and I like to know. And I remember reading about Larry Clark when he made Kids with Harmony Korine, who was 19. He just asked him, what's authentic, what feels real? And then when you're rehearsing with the cast, you go through the script, and anything that feels like an old man wrote it, you take it out so that it feels like an 18-year-old wrote it.
How is the process to create or prepare such elaborate, creative, brutal deaths?
Sometimes you realize you're doing the same type of death over and over, or, okay, this was a big bloody one, now we something that's short and sweet and more simple. But I'm looking at everything going, this is an opportunity to create one of the greatest deaths ever in a horror movie. That's how I think of it. So I approach it going, I've seen every horror movie, I've seen every death, how are we going to outdo that? How am I going to do it better than this? And sometimes you miss the mark, sometimes you hit it. But it's fun, you just sit there and you think, like, what is the worst thing that can happen? And then sometimes you're just inspired. We were on location planning for a character to be hiding in this barn, and there was a pitchfork there. And we're like, we just grabbed it, and suddenly that changed the whole scene. He's like poking around with the pitchfork, but then he can ram it through the wall. That wasn't planned. We knew where we were going to get to at the end of the scene, but that middle part, that's where you're figuring it out. So it's a combination of planning the big death and then all the little steps you can do to get there once you're on the location.
And finally, in an industry full of slasher films, how did you prepare to make a movie that is not more of the same?
The other movies are reboots and remakes. I haven't seen an original slasher film. It's the same characters. So, what new slasher films are there? Can you name one?
Yeah.
One.
Point. No, but everything.
I'm not trying to be. I'm not like being aggressive. I'm just thinking. You said in a world of slasher, and you think, yeah, but then what is there?
That everything is a reboot or a remake.
It's the same thing we've seen over and over. So the way I do it is by creating a new character. This is the only original slasher film. The only other original horror movie I've seen in theaters is Talk to Me. Everything else is a reboot or an adaptation of something. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to be original, you have to make it great. But I think it's time. It's time. We can't even think of the last original slasher film. It's time for some new blood. I want this generation to go, okay, my older brother has Scream. My parents have Jason and Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers. We love them. We love those characters. I love those characters. They're what inspired me. But I think it's time to bring in some new blood. Create a new one.